नमस्कार, एपी सेन्टरमा स्वागत छ। म समा थापा। नेपाल र अमेरिका बीच सन् 1947 देखि कूटनीतिक सम्बन्ध स्थापित भएसँगै नेपालका विभिन्न क्षेत्रमा अमेरिकी सहयोग, चासो र सदाशयता जारी छ। अमेरिका नेपालको पुरानो विकास साझेदार हो। नेपालको स्वास्थ्य, शिक्षा लगायतका क्षेत्रमा अमेरिकी सहयोग प्रशंसा योग्य छ। तर लामो समयदेखि दुई देशबीच कूटनीतिक सम्बन्ध स्थापित भए पनि माथिल्लो तहमा भने दुई देशका अधिकारी बीच छलफल र परामर्श हुन सकिरहेको थिएन। तर 17 वर्षपछि नेपाल र अमेरिका बीच परराष्ट्र मन्त्री तहमा हालै मात्र द्विपक्षीय छलफल भयो। यसलाई कसरी पनि हेरियो भन्दा दुई विशाल मुलुक भारत र चीनको बीचमा रहेको नेपालको रणनीतिक महत्त्व बढेर गएको भनेर पनि विश्लेषणहरू आइरहेको छ। अर्को पक्षको विश्लेषण के पनि छ भन्दा अब नेपालको परिचय फेरिएको छ, परिस्थिति फेरिएको छ। नेपालमा स्थिर सरकार गठन भएको छ। यसको सन्देश हो यो उच्च तहको भ्रमण। विश्व राजनीतिमा खासै चासोमा नपरेको नेपाल पछिल्लो समय शक्तिशाली मुलुक भारत, चीन र अमेरिका बीचको रणनीतिक स्पेसमा पनि छ। सधैँ भन्ने गरिन्छ अमेरिकाले नेपाललाई भारतीय आँखाबाट मात्र हेर्छ। उसको खास स्वार्थ चीनसँग जोडिएको छ, त्यसका लागि नेपाल रणनीतिक वस्तु मात्र हो। के यस्तै हो त? आज विशेष गरी नेपाल र अमेरिका बीच परराष्ट्र मन्त्री तहमा 17 वर्षपछि भएको छलफल र नेपालको विषयमा अमेरिकी बुझाइ लगायतका समसामयिक विषयमा कुराकानी गर्नेछौँ। र कुराकानीका लागि हामीसँग हुनुहुन्छ नेपालका लागि अमेरिकी राजदूत Randy Berry. Your Excellency, welcome to AP Center.
Sama, namaste. I'm thrilled to be with you today.
So am I. How are you doing?
Fantastic. I'm just about to notch up my first 90 days here back in Nepal, and I couldn't be happier. It's been a really wonderful reception, and I'm feeling very, very happy and fulfilled to be back here in Kathmandu. So
far, how's Nepal and Nepali treating you?
You know, as always, Nepal and Kathmandu have proven very, very hospitable to me. This has been a real opportunity for me to reacquaint friendships since I had served here about a decade ago, and really refresh my memory of just the warm hospitality of the Nepali people, to re-immerse myself in some good dalbat and really get reacquainted with the culture and with the history.
Okay. I assume you've returned Nepal with more responsibilities. I think that's a fact. So what made you come back again?
Well, you know, ultimately the decision of the government to bring me back as ambassador was a decision made back in Washington. But of course, I was a very willing participant in this. It was a very easy decision for me to accept this role back here in Kathmandu, primarily because I had a really good sense of what we've been doing here in partnership with the Nepali people and Nepali government. I know the quality of the mission that I now lead here, and really, you know, I left here back in 2009 with such warm feelings of Nepal that it felt like a very natural fit to come back.
On a lighter note, this is my personal query rather than a question from a journalist. I see a lot of social media activities going around regarding Nepali culture, ambience, places and people. Is that a conscious effort or that just comes from heart?
Well, both.
I've been stalking you.
Well, you know, it's really a very clear, I think, expression of where my interests lie. Again, you know, part of my real affection for this country really came from the people, from the culture, from the strength of the national identity here. So what you see on social media is really a clear expression of what I value here and what makes me happiest, you know, when I have a chance to follow my own interests here. So it's a little bit of both. That it's a very clear agenda, really to show what's in my heart.
We are enjoying that too.
I'm glad to hear that.
So let's talk about the much talked about visit. Nepal's Foreign Minister Pradeep Gyawali just met with the Secretary of State of the U.S., Michael Pompeo. This kind of high-level meeting has not happened in almost 2 decades. After 17 long years. What took it so long?
Well, clearly it was overdue, and we are thrilled with how the meeting came about, and also with how things progressed. You know, I believe that there are a couple of reasons why I think we were able to really get this kind of meeting back on track. The first of which is, you know, Nepal is facing a period of stability that it hasn't had in many years. That has, I think, elevated expectations, certainly here among Nepalis, for the government's ability to deliver results. It's also raised expectations in Washington as well. So we felt this was the right time to begin to elevate our conversation, to talk about the core issues that we care about most in Nepal, and to also listen to Nepal's aspirations from its political leaders for where the country is headed.
Can you highlight some major outcomes of that meeting? Because a lot of speculation is going around in Nepal here. Regarding that meeting.
Indeed. You know, at the core of all of these meetings really takes a look at three main pillars and how the U.S. engages with Nepal as a true partner and friend, as we have for over 70 years. The first is related to inclusive, stable, and responsive governance. That, you know, the government has set, you know, improved good governance as a key agenda. We think that's smart, and we are looking at ways and discussed ways in which we can be good partners in that effort. A second pillar really revolves around economic growth and stability. That you know, the more opportunities, the more resilient the Nepali economy is, the more jobs that are available for local young people particularly, and that also improves Nepal's relationship with the U.S. as a reliable trading partner. The third basket really has to do with resilience. That a lot of our interventions and our engagements here are aimed at assisting Nepal to exercise its independence and its sovereignty to a greater degree. So all of that really revolved around those three main pillars.
And are these meetings suggestions that U.S. wants to take up the space China has been occupying so far in Nepal? Is there any sense in that?
You know, no. I think that the fundamental behind that question would be sort of a presumption that you've got a zero-sum game when it comes to relationships. I don't believe that's the case. That the U.S. has always occupied, I think, to the extent there is any space, we have been here for 71 years now, really as a stable, consistent partner for Nepal, who has invested, you know, over those 7 decades, over $3 billion in Nepal's development, in its growth, in the health of its people. You know, so this is the space that we occupy. This is the space we'll continue to occupy. You know, that I think that that certainly, you know, our role here is as a supporter and a friend of Nepal in realizing its own aspirations.
But with the geopolitical situation and surrounding in this era, in this period of time, can we imagine a sole, pure, clear Nepal-US relation, keeping aside China and India? Is that really possible on the ground level?
Indeed it is. You know, at the core of our policy, in the core of our engagement with Nepal, is really the idea that a Nepal that is economically integrated and land linked to all of its neighbors is incredibly important for the economic growth, for continued stability. You know, and the U.S. benefits from that kind of stability, and seeing Nepal really access markets in the region to have a strong trading and political relationship with all of its neighbors. The core of our idea is really taking a look at the quality, not only of our own assistance, but also the quality of those relationships, to make sure that we're doing our best for Nepal, and that we are providing assistance in such a way and engaging in such a way that benefits and really sees the kind of quality development, the kind of quality trading relationships, the kind of quality infrastructure development that Nepalis deserve.
So do you think Nepal has been able to maintain a balanced diplomatic relation with Nepal, you know, with China, US or other countries? Do you see Nepal leaning to one country in particular? Because there is a lot of assumption regarding this as well. You know, you are a pro-American, anti-American, pro-Chinese, anti-Chinese, stuff like that. A lot of calculation is going around.
Again, I think that presumes that international relations is a zero-sum game. You know, that I think that there is exactly one country that Nepal should lean towards, and that is towards itself. That, you know, the quality, again, of all of our engagement here, the core of our policy really is to see Nepal express its own independence, achieve its own objectives for its people, and to not be dependent on any country, including my own. That the goal here is really to see Nepal in a more prominent way, act on its sovereignty, make decisions that are based in the best outcomes for its people, and not be beholden to any country for its course in the world.
Do you feel Nepal has been able to maintain that relationship?
I think for many for the course of its existence, Nepal, of course, is is in a neighborhood where you have two very prominent neighbors. I think it's incredibly important for Nepal to maintain a solid relationship with those neighbors and also beyond. I would mention that in this day and age, where especially in instant communications in terms of economic growth and development, that neighbors can be translated in a lot of different ways, that it's no longer just the geographic sense, where again I think it's important that Nepal realize its land linkedness with its closest neighbors, but also looks beyond to regional connectivity, to the trading relationship with the U.S., where we're the second largest importer of Nepali products in the world after India. So I think that's an important point that I'd like to stress.
You've spent almost like 25 years of your career as a diplomat. So what change have you observed globally in the field of international affairs? Is the world more divided or united? What do you see as a diplomat, the whole world?
Well, I'd say it certainly is a different environment than the one that I encountered when I first came to South Asia 25 years ago for my first assignment in Bangladesh. And I would say that you could probably make a case for things being more united and also for being more divided. That I think it's we're dealing with an increasingly multipolar world, a more complicated set of dynamics. What I think that does, the reminder that it is to me as a diplomat who's really devoted my whole career to working towards unity, to focusing on human rights and good governance, representing my country to do the most that we can to realize a greater, closer relationship, a greater communication. It reminds me that we all need to redouble our efforts to work towards unity. That I think that kind of interconnectedness in political terms, in cultural terms, in economic terms, just makes the most sense. That I think we draw great strength in diversity from our experiences and our perspectives, but that requires a close and meaningful conversation.
Your Excellency, Nepal always aspires to reap the best from both of its elite neighbors, I would say, elite neighbors. How do you perceive Nepal's challenges and opportunity with regards to this and the efforts being made by Nepal? Like, is Nepal playing safely, or let's say tactfully, is Nepal playing?
Well, first of all, I think Nepal and the Nepali people have every right and expectation to benefit from the best practices, not just from the neighbors, but from around the world.
Beyond neighbors as well.
Right. That's the quality, I think, of the engagement that we like to see. That's the quality of the development that we like to see here. I think that focusing on the quality of that is very, very important. I think Nepal has certain challenges. Clearly, a big boost in terms of economic growth would be very, very helpful. We take a close look at how we can support that. For example, through the signing and the implementation of a $500 million contribution from the U.S., $130 million from the Nepali government, through the Millennium Challenge Corporation to see the construction of needed energy and road infrastructure here. We think that kind of project is a big vote of confidence, can provide a big vote of confidence for Nepal with the business community, for example. So, I think that those challenges, I think one thing that is clear to me is that there's so much potential here in Nepal. I know that to be true, but Nepal, and now's the time with this stability, with this opportunity to start realizing it and stop talking about it.
As you mentioned, there's an extreme amount of potentiality. Despite of tremendous potentiality, we're not being able to reap the best. What is the reason? What do you think, the internal affair or the external affair? What are we lacking?
Well, I think that any country can improve in how it provides services and grows the economy for its people. We think that for example, to see economic growth here, that there are several key aspects that some economic and regulatory reform needs to take place to make Nepal a more attractive base for foreign direct investment, for example. I think that as investors look at potentialities in the region or globally, they're going to look for transparency. They're going to look for better efforts to counter corruption. They're going to look at indexes and meaningful measures of how easy it is to do business there, for example. I also believe that anytime that a country is really drawing upon the full force of its citizenry, that's when I think you see remarkable things happen. I think that certainly in the U.S. we draw remarkable strength from the diversity of our national personality. I think Nepal also has that great potential. But I think that's still potential. I think there's still work to be done.
So you believe a lot of internal changes has to be taken out for the best result?
I think the fundamentals and values is what's always been the bedrock of our relationship with, not just with the successive governments, but also with the Nepali people. We think that those are, again, a devotion to good governance, of inclusive and responsive leadership, of a clear economic growth, and really providing opportunity for all of its citizens. And I'll give you an example. That one thing that where I would like to have seen greater change in the 10 years I've been gone, where so much has been done. It's been remarkable to me to see what's been done. But for example, on leadership for women in either government or business, I think clearly there's still more that needs to be done. I would say this for my own country as well, but I look at young women like you who are visible leading faces here, and I think we should see more of that because any country that doesn't really tap 50% of its population is missing out.
So U.S. is our long-time development partner. So how do you assess the role and support of U.S. to Nepal in helping it realize the aspiration of prosperity in terms of development in any field, be it the bringing investment or other sector of development? Are you happy with the role U.S. is playing?
I'm very happy, and this was the main reason why I was extraordinarily pleased to be named the new U.S. ambassador here. I know from my previous time here the quality of that kind of engagement, and it goes back over 70 years when we were the second country really to come in to Nepal to begin working as partners to see benefits accrue for the Nepali people. I've had a chance to see this firsthand in terms of the provision of health services, for example. I've had the chance to get out to Ramechhap and Dolakha just a few weeks ago to see what our contributions in partnership with the National Reconstruction Authority and other international partners is doing to provide safe and sustainable housing, to restore schools and health centers, to really take a look at food security and everything that makes Nepal more prosperous in the agriculture sector, and in education, in responsive governance, in the democracy side as well. So that relationship is extraordinarily broad. Again, there is a long history here. And I'm so pleased to be here and to work on that really as partners, that I think working as equals in that relationship is very important.
Your Excellency, despite of tremendous work U.S. is doing here in Nepal, we often hear and feel of big and advanced countries playing a role of big brother, which the citizens of smaller countries like Nepal do not appreciate much. How can that unbalanced relation be brought in balance? Like, there's a fear like we are being dominated, by big brothers, be it United States, India or China or any other big countries.
I think it's important for us all to really dedicate ourselves to working on the basis of working in partnership. That kind of relationship is exactly what the United States works to avoid. That our engagements here really have been over the course of that 70-year history aimed at increasing local capacity, of training, of providing the tools to make Nepal more independent in all of these spheres. That I would have a greater concern to see relationships evolve where that's not happening, where the quality of those kinds of engagements doesn't produce a Nepal that is more independent. That I think at the core of all of these engagements really is based in mutual respect, mutual understanding, listening as much as one speaks, which I think is extraordinarily important. And that I think certainly during my tenure, but also I can say from the many men and women in our mission and who have worked here over the years, we're really focused on delivering results that are goals that the Nepali people have set for themselves. That we are very mindful of the fact that this is not our country, that we are here as guests, and we are here to assist Nepal's own development. And so all of our grants, not loans, that are delivered here are done in conjunction with the government and to meet governments and the people's aspirations.
Exactly. Why this kind of feeling is not owned by Nepali all over here in Nepal? Like, what makes them feel they are quite inferior? You know, the big countries are always, you know, they are opposing them.
You know, to the extent that that's true, we need to work to counter that. This is a sovereign country. It has a remarkable culture and vibrancy. It's got a wonderful history, and it has some of the most amazing young people, you know, that I've met anywhere in the world, and that this country can truly rise on those assets. And it's not a junior partner to anyone. You know, that I think that this is part of the conversation about a Nepal that is more independent, that charts its own course, and really demands the kind of quality and equality in relationships that should always exist.
So U.S. has been extending development support since past 70 years. What are its key areas of focus, or, you know, at present, in future as well? What are the areas of work U.S. wants to focus?
Well, it's a very broad agenda, and again, all responsive to goals and to targets that the Nepali people have set for themselves. I mentioned some of them before, but you know, we have the flagship of our development assistance here really has been engagement in the healthcare sector, and that's been ongoing for many decades. But you know, today we are active. We are engaging with nearly every ministry and civil society across the board on issues related to food security and agricultural economic development, to private sector reform and growth, to democracy and governance that is more transparent, has better safeguards against corrupt practices, resilience, which I would say, you know, our investment in those structures and those entities that provide earthquake reconstruction assistance, for example, you know, that make Nepal more resilient. That's also important. I've saved one for last because I believe very deeply in it, and that's our engagement in the education sector as well, where we have gotten very involved in making sure that young Nepali kids, wherever they're at in this country, whether it's here in Kathmandu or all the way up in Simikot, have the access to quality education, because education plus opportunity means success. You know that, I think, from your career. I certainly know it from my own. But you got to have education. You got to invest there, and you've got to invest in making the kind of opportunities that let people rise on the basis of their skills.
Talking about education, we always hear about the increasing number of Nepali students going to United States for higher studies, which also means Nepalis somewhat contributing to the U.S. national economy. Can average Nepali student lead a good, comfortable life in U.S.?
Absolutely, and get a very high quality education along the way. You know, that I think that the U.S. provides a very good target. Again, I'm going to go back to that word of quality, where I think that investments in education in the U.S. Really deliver skills, you know, that young Nepalis can bring back here and really put to work for the future of this country. You know, Nepal, we've seen those numbers continue to rise over the years. We know that Nepalis are good students once they're in the U.S. And again, we think that the quality of education is very sound. You know, Nepal actually is one of the greatest nationalities represented in the U.S. on a per capita basis in our education sector, in the top 10.
Is that a drawback in a sense for us here in Nepal? How do you feel that? You know, a lot of brain drain happening every year.
I don't think it's a drawback. I think it's a tremendous asset. What I do hope is that there are greater opportunities here, so that people, when they finish their education, see their future back here in Nepal, and invest and know that what they can bring back here in terms of that education, you know, if we can see the correct sort of creation of opportunity here, or an entrepreneurial spirit amongst those folks that come back, because that, I think, is a significant investment in Nepal's own future. You know, that as I look at the figures on remittances, for example, you know, I think it's certainly, you know, people following, you know, the opportunities for employment, but I look for a day where more Nepalis see their economic and professional futures here, where you see a return of people who can really invest and contribute to the growth of this country.
But I feel we're not being able to hold them back, or, you know, give them proper space so that they can explore their education. Do you think we need to work on that area as well in Nepal, creating jobs and opportunities?
I think opportunity takes many forms, and I think certainly with what I would like to see and what we're working for are economic and regulatory reforms that make this a more positive investment climate, where I think if you see a greater number of international businesses invested here, that creates opportunity. But I would also say that I've really encouraged the young people that I've seen is to not wait for change to occur, that they also need to be drivers of innovation here, which is a very natural sell. But you know, the sitting around waiting for the kinds of changes that one would like to see sometimes can be futile, that I've really encouraged young people to really demonstrate that entrepreneurial spirit, get out there and follow their dreams, create opportunities of their own. And I know that's hard. It's a lot easier to say than it is to do, but I really think that that is the core of Nepal's future among those younger people.
Talking about young students working in, studying in United States, we also hear of criminal cases in which Nepalis, mostly working at gas station and convenience stores, have lost their lives. How's the security situation like? Is it quite threatening?
Well, I'm deeply saddened on the few occasions when we've heard of this, and to be completely clear about this, this certainly has affected Nepali immigrants to the United States, as it has other immigrants from other countries, but also American-born citizens as well. Crime and violence is I think it's a challenge in any country where we're at. I think that what is important is that these communities pull together and continue to invest in community strategies and also with proper policing to improve the overall security strategy for people wherever they're at.
Do the criminals target people of certain countries? Because I've been hearing this kind of incident quite a lot.
No, I don't believe that at all. I think that these incidences, are really target of opportunity, where people are taking advantage of someone who's working late at night in a place that is maybe not, not quite as secure. I think that has everything to do with it, but I think race and ethnicity have nothing to do with that.
So how can such incidents be stopped? Is the United States aware?
Indeed, for all of our citizens, we take a hard look at crime statistics. We, support for local law enforcement bodies for investigations and to make sure that our judicial sector punishes those who are responsible for those crimes. That's the most effective way systemically, I think, of reducing the overall crime rate. Is it perfect? No. We still have work to do. But I think, engaging and making sure that we are supporting those who enforce our laws, that we are supporting, our judicial sector, ability to hand out those punishments is very important.
Getting back to Nepal, Your Excellency, we talk a lot about New Nepal. Everyone says New Nepal. This is New Nepal, the democratic nation. Since it's your second time to Nepal, since your past visit, what are the changes? Let's talk about some positive changes you've gathered, the positive changes.
Absolutely, and there are plenty of positive changes to note. I'd say it's been a real pleasure for me to maybe get a snapshot after a decade away about just how much has occurred. That I think the success in implementing really an inclusive and world-class constitution is a major achievement. I think really putting the divisions of the conflict era behind and working towards a brighter future for Nepal, that's evident. I think holding these successive rounds of elections successfully to really get service delivery, to get responsive governance down to the local level is a very important development as well. In my country or any other, this never occurs with the speed that we would like to see it. But I think, having been away, it's clear to me to see that kind of progress and just how far the country has come. I think this era of political stability that we've got right now is incredibly important, and it's a product of that. And now is the opportunity to do something with it.
A lot of hassle in implementing the changes as well. We've made very significant law, rules via constitution, but a lot of trouble in implementing those things as well. So do you want to recall your past experience, like while you were in Nepal, maybe how many years back?
Well, as I think back to what my previous experience here was like, something that really struck me, maybe in a non-work sense, was really, I took advantage to get out there and really experience Nepali culture, both in terms of its the various celebrations that occur throughout the year, whether it's the food, so I have very vivid memories of you know, of the Indra Jatra or Shivaratri, or of the Biscuit Jatra out in Bhaktapur, or of the peace and tranquility that one instantly senses when you're out in Bodhanath or Swayambhu. You know, so those cultural touchstones are very important to me. But I would say if you have to delve down a little deeper, it really comes down to people. That you know, I think the Nepali national character has been so impactful on me, because it shows me, I think, just what people are capable of here. And I am a big fan of the potential of Nepalis to really get things done and to be masters of their own fate. That's one of the prime reasons that I'm back here. And I would say, especially young people, and especially young women in this country, who I think have great untapped contributions yet to make here.
You know, we've come a long way, I guess. A lot of political things are implemented, changes, systems are being changed. You know, you mentioned about the jatras and all. Are they still same? Are we able, you know, we retain the core of the jatras? Can you recall the past days?
Yeah, well, you know, I haven't had enough experience.
Are they still same?
I haven't had enough experience yet to really say. I don't see anything that tells me that they're not. You know, but I've only been here now for less than 90 days, so I have every intention of getting out there and seeing all of these wonderful experiences again.
So recently, you know, President Trump signed Tibet Reciprocity Act into law. So what will be the implication to Nepal and Tibetan refugee residing in Nepal? Do you see it as a major threat?
I don't. I think that Nepal, you know, for decades has provided a place of safety for Tibetan refugees who have come here seeking you know, a safer existence. I think that's commendable. I think, you know, we have been consistent with the government in commending them for the kind of tolerance, the kind of inclusivity that is really a hallmark of the Nepali national character. I don't see anything changing on
Why
this,
is there
a
lot of amount of fear? I can sense some fear. Yeah.
Fear amongst.
While this, you know, act is translated into law, there's a fear.
I don't see any significant impact on the Tibetan community here or on the Nepali government. That I think that the status of Tibetan refugees here, who, you know, many of whom who've grown up in this country, I think that place of safety, that place of freedom that Nepal has offered, so that they can really pursue their cultural and religious rights, has been very important. And I don't see that changing. That Nepal has, again, has really, throughout its history, has been an inclusive place of great tolerance, and I don't see any of that changing.
Earlier you just mentioned about the diversity and inclusiveness Nepali cherishing. What has been your impression on the state of gender equality, women participation in Nepal, you know, in terms of inclusiveness? You know, I was... Are you happy?
I am happy, but I could be happier. I think, you know, I was really struck by being the first U.S. ambassador to present my credentials to a female head of state when I had a chance to see President Bhandari. And I think that's a great example of some of the progress that's been made, that Nepal has come this far. I also do see an increasing number of women in leadership positions, whether that's in the NGO field, in the media, in business, but it's not enough. And I would say that also in my own country, you know, where we have just gone through a midterm election, which in the governmental sense has seen a record number of women enter our Congress, but it's still around 25%. It should be more than that, and it should be more than that in a meaningful sense. So that you know, I take a look, for example, in the Nepal context, about a number of the deputy mayors throughout, you know, throughout Nepal are women. I look forward to a day when the mayors are women.
You know, we have women as head of state. It's a matter of pride and honor for all of us. That's a psychological boost up as well for all of us. But do you see that has created an impact in the rural areas of Nepal? People residing in Jumla, Humla, or any other corner of Nepal?
I think it can, and I think sometimes the effects of that are not immediately apparent. You know, that I think that when you see when you see greater equality cut any way on gender issues, on racial and background, on any of these measures, where a person really rises to a position based on the character of their content, on their abilities, you're going to see positive impacts there, because that's the core nature of opportunity. I think also the inspiration factor is something
that motivates us. Yeah.
It's motivational, but it's also sometimes hard to quantify. That you don't know, I think, sometimes the impact that people have. For example, how do we know the impact of a female head of state in Nepal? We may not know that for a generation until we see young women saying, this is possible because I've seen it being done, and that really don't take no for an answer because they know that those greater opportunities lie ahead. That is truly exciting to me.
Absolutely, very well said. I second your thought. Could you shed some light on the Trump administration immigration policy, because a lot of speculations is being made, because a lot of Nepali always wants to settle in the United States. That's a fact. That's a known fact. The government looks through how the government looks on immigrants. Like, will there be any changes? Very hard changes?
Yeah, what I can tell you is that in America,
the talks of border wall has become a very critical issue.
I think if you look in the longer scope of things, my country is a country formed of immigrants. We draw our strength from diversity. I think all you have to do is take a look at the numbers of immigrants to the United States to see that is still very much the case. That I think if you take a look at the number of, again, we talked about Nepali students going to the U.S., where they're among the highest per capita in the world. I know, because I know many of them, Nepali immigrants to the U.S. who are leading productive, productive careers, raising their children in the United States, and feel welcomed and valued, and that their contributions absolutely are valued. And I think that is fundamentally the truth.
So Nepalis living in the U.S. be fearful with the new policy?
I think Nepalis should aspire to the same kinds of rights and promises and opportunities that America offers for all of its people.
Is that possible?
It is.
So I was about to ask this question quite earlier, but it just slipped from my mind. Recently, Mr. Robert Palladino, the spokesperson of State Department, he tweeted, I'm sure you are aware of his tweet. He tweets, the two leaders discussed Nepal's central role in a free, open and prosperous Indo-Pacific global issues, including North Korea and more. Can you shed some light in this? And I'm very much curious to know, what is North Korea doing here? In this tweet.
Sure.
Can you enlighten me?
The core principle or value that really underpins the Indo-Pacific strategy, which is how the U.S. engages with the nations across this very broad, very diverse, very economically powerful region, really is to look at issues related to rules-based order, to interconnectivity, and to greater transparency and anti-corruption. That this is not, this is really a common adherence to values, or it informs our engagement with nations throughout the region. Again, this is not a zero-sum game. That we believe that that Nepal benefits, as do we, when Nepal is land-linked, not landlocked, but linked to all of its neighbors, and that the common set, the values that bind us all together, again, are those adherences to democratic principles. I think North Korea, you can take a look there and see where North Korea might be lacking, and the danger that I believe North Korea poses because it doesn't espouse those kinds of values, and we believe that poses a threat to the region and also to the world. So we have the type of the conversation we had with Nepal is the type of conversation we have with many of our friends and partners around the world, and that is a frank conversation about issues that are important to us all.
It has nothing to do with the Chinese influence?
It's about values, and I think, again, our engagement here is really to take a look at adherence to rules-based order, to economic opportunity that's implemented in a way that really benefits all Nepalis and brightens the future, and that integrates Nepal more closely with all of its neighbors, all of them.
So why is there a lot of fear? There's always some fear or skepticism that U.S. policies to Nepal are slightly inclined to use Nepal as base to control Chinese influence in South Asia, or as a base to watch China or other countries. And the Indo-Pacific, this thing is also related to that assumption?
For
a lot of speculation going around.
Thanks for that question. For 70 years, we have invested here with a single purpose in mind, and that is to see Nepal develop, become more stable, more inclusive, exercise better governance, improve its economy, and exercise its resiliency. There is no part of that that has ever, I think, sought to control. We are really investing here to free Nepal's future, to allow Nepal to develop in such a way that it's accountable to itself. That's the whole core of our engagement here. That we didn't invest here for 70 years to see Nepal in a junior relationship. This is a partnership of equals, and that's the way it's going to stay.
But there's always a deeper understanding, or let's say misunderstanding. You must always see Nepal from the eye of India. How true is that?
The U.S. is the world superpower. That in no region of the world do we do the work of another country. I'm here because I'm representing my country and the policies that make our relationship with Nepal stronger, based on those issues. And that I can tell you, every person at my mission is working to do the same. I think it's too easy sometimes to try to game this out as a zero-sum game about positioning, but the sad thing is that's just not the truth. Our engagement here is really it's a very happy coincidence, as I've always said. I'm here to represent U.S. interests here, but our interests are best served by a Nepal that is democratic and responsive, economically sound, and is able to exercise its independence and its sovereignty to the fullest degree. Full stop.
Your Excellency, we've almost come to an end. To end this conversation, what has been the most remarkable experience you have gathered in Nepal so far, as a person or as an ambassador?
That's the hardest question you've asked me to actually answer, because there have been so many experiences from my previous time here, and also from the few weeks that I've had to spend here. But I will say one thing that really sits with me. That is, a few weeks ago, I had the chance to go out to Ramachop, as I mentioned. We were doing that in order to hand back the school in Ramachop, the secondary school, that is going to now be able to provide education, a place of safe education for 800 students in that area. I think the look of hope and enthusiasm and excitement among Nepalis who are 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, who now see a brighter opportunity ahead, is probably the most moving thing that I've had a chance to see so far. And to know that that's the tip of the iceberg, that we have dozens more schools and healthcare centers to come online to really, again, invest in the kind of quality that especially Nepal's youngest people really deserve.
Your Excellency, as I already told you, I was stalking you on social media. I just figured out that you can speak Nepali as well. Nepali कतिको बोल्नुहुन्छ?
Eli Nepali bolchu, but I'm still learning. I'm committed to improving my Nepali, but the demands on an ambassador's time are often many. My time to study is often too small, but I'm continuing to work at it.
Free time, what do you like to do?
Many of the things that we've already talked about. I love to get out to see the historic and cultural sites around Kathmandu. I draw great strength from that when I'm out and about. So I think particularly for me, structures of historic consequence are really meaningful to me. Whether it's in Kathmandu's Durbar Square or up in Mustang, which I haven't had a chance to visit yet. Whether it's down, did have the chance to go down to Lumbini and see the birthplace of Gautam Buddha.
I saw that as well.
Yeah, indeed. So these are all personally meaningful to me, as well as the fact that we also then can turn that into some of our program engagements where we've been helping organizations here restore those historic structures as well. So I get a great deal of satisfaction out of that.
On a personal note, what's the best thing about Kathmandu?
The best thing about Kathmandu, the people.
The people. The worst?
the traffic sometimes and the air quality, but yeah.
And तपाईको काठमाडौँ बाहेक अरू ठाउँहरुमा जाने प्लानहरु के छ? As a person, not as a diplomat or as an ambassador, के हेर्नु मन छ अरू?
My Nepali is not enough to cover what you just said.
What do you like to see as a person in Nepal in the days to come?
Well, that's a complicated question as well. I would like to see Nepal really take strides in realizing the potential that we've talked about for a long time. I really would like to see a Nepal down the road where, you know, men and women from all walks of life, from any ethnicity, from any background, have the same kind of opportunity of education to make it in life. I would like to see a Nepal where, again, young Nepalis get excited about the potentials here because I know that that's possible, and I know what those potentials are. And I really hope to come back. You know, I've been gone for 10 years. I hope I can come back in 10 years when I'm retired as a tourist and see some of these changes in person.
Do you see those things materializing in near future? Or it's a very long and hard journey for Nepal?
You know, I do, but I think that none of that is a foregone conclusion. I think it takes inspired leadership from government. I think it takes inspired leadership and persistence among non-governmental actors and civil society folks. I think it requires innovation and entrepreneurial thinking in the business community. I think it requires a compassion and an openness to inclusivity that I think can make Nepal very, very attractive in a number of different ways to tourists, where there's great interest, I think, in Nepal from the business community. I want to see this relationship thrive, and I want to see Nepal in a stronger, more resilient place.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for your time, your views and thoughts. Thank you for everything.
My pleasure.
It's tremendous having you here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. उहाँ हुनुहुन्थ्यो नेपालका लागि अमेरिकी राजदूत रेन्डी बेरी। अमेरिका र नेपाल लामो समयदेखि दौत्य सम्बन्ध स्थापना भएको मुलुक हो। दुई देश बीचको सम्बन्ध आगामी भविष्य लगायतका समसामयिक विषयमा हामीले कुराकानी गर्यौं। अर्को हप्ता एपी सेन्टर नयाँ विषयका साथ लिएर आउनेछौं। तबसम्मका लागि बिदा दिनुहोस्। नमस्कार।